You ever just think about Kirby? Like, I mean, think about Kirby. This massively popular franchise spawning comic books, TV series, manga, plushies, crossovers. Heck, there's even an entire darn cafe modeled around the Pink Puff. I have to eat there. Kirby is a big deal, and yet despite that, it can feel like the games where Kirby actually comes from can feel a little overlooked. And it's a real shame, and while most of the fandom would agree with that, I'm gonna look the fandom back in the eyes and go, "Nuh-uh, you guys are meanie panches too. What do you mean nobody talks about how awesome Mass Attack is anymore?" But this video is not about Kirby Mass Attack, and yes, Kirby Mass Attack is a very real game that very really exists. But the game we're going to talk about today, it was a 3DS game that came out in 2018, and it sold like 10 copies. Like, clearly, this game can't be that good. Kirby Battle Royale is a game that you don't really hear much buzz around, and while a big part of that has to do with the 3DS being very much irrelevant by 2018 when it came out in North America, the 3DS in general has seen a huge resurgence recently because modern technology really stinks and everything is expensive and always online and bad. Playing something that doesn't stink isn't terribly expensive. I know 3DSs could still do to be cheaper these days, don't hurt me. And permanently offline? Sign me up. Still, even with the 3DS being relevant again, nobody really seems interested in hopping on the Kirby Battle Royale hype train. And to me, that's a real shame because I think this game is super cool. As to why it's super cool, well, hold your puppet horses for a minute. This is a YouTube video and I'll get there and all that jazz. But to skip ahead for now, all you need to know is that I'm a big enough fan of the game to where I wanted to learn its speedrun. I've dabbled in many a Kirby speedrun over the years. It's kind of what I talk about on this channel almost exclusively at this point, but I've admittedly looked at the any % speedrun of Battle Royale, clearing its story mode, the Cake Royale, as quickly as you can, with a bit of indifference, disinterest, ennui, bonjour, baguette, jus de pain. In this story mode, you need to clear through 5 different battle leagues, the beginner, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, to battle day-to-day and clear the Cake Royale, thus winning the speedrun. In these battle leagues, you play the various different battle modes, either solo or with a CPU Bandana D, your friend Dana D, as I'm deciding to call him right now, and only right now, until you rack up enough points to challenge your league's qualifier battle, alongside Bandana D. Win the qualifier, advance to the next league. This on its own is all pretty neat, but what made you have to listen to me speak French really poorly is that most of these game modes are timed battles. Some take a full minute, some take longer, but the point is the time is fixed. With only 1 or 2 exceptions, opportunities to save time and, express yourself in a speed run, something that's all about self-expression, are very rare. But when community member, organizer, speedrunner, and Crow, Hal, asked me if I could learn Kirby Battle Royale for the Kirby spin-off Community Relay held back in June of 2026, I said, I don't really have a choice, who else even knows what this game is, but still resoundingly said yes and got to work. I looked up a route, I got my 3DS capture card set up because yes, I have one of those, and you can pry it from my cold dead hands, I love my 3DS so much, and I played the darned game. And what I discovered surprised me so much, impressed me so much, and I don't know, I was just having a lot of fun with it, sue me, that I kept playing it over and over and over to the point where I'm 2nd place on the leaderboard and slowly approaching that world record time, very slowly. Quite the turnaround, but why? For a game that nobody cares about, with a speedrun I didn't even think that I would like, and worst of all, doesn't let you use sleep in its story mode, how did I grow to love it so much? Well, we're about to find out, but before I go any further, I wanted to— Wait, hold on, this video isn't sponsored! Don't leave, please. Please don't. Please be nice. Anyway, this video is the 2nd of 5 coming this August, where I talk about Kirby speedrun events that I partook in throughout the last year. In making these, I'm also doing a watch time-a-thon where I try my darndest to motivate people to watch as much of my content as possible. There are lots of details about the specifics to go over, but to keep things simple, I'll be uploading daily shorts, streaming every day, and specifically, I'm going to be doing Battle Royale speedruns for the whole weekend that this video goes up, so stay tuned! All while putting out high-quality videos like this one every Saturday of the month. If any of this sounds neat, please consider subscribing to the channel, stopping by a stream to say hi, and hey, maybe watch some of the literal hundreds of old videos that I have. It's all free! You still here? Please say yes, please say yes, please say yes, please say yes. Well, okay, I guess this video, or this bit, doesn't really work. The video works, but the bit doesn't work because you're still here. Okay, let's talk about Battle Royale! Before getting to the good stuff, there's actually a short intro stage made to get you used to the controls. Casually, it's cute and fun, and I really like it, but just by analyzing this beginning that doesn't even take 5 minutes to clear, we can learn something very important in regards to how this speedrun is going to work. Sword is the only ability that we can use. This gives it a pretty big edge over the other abilities, on paper, since if it's good enough to do what we need it to do, there should be no need to change off of it. If you've seen my sword slander over the years, you won't be as disappointed as I am to learn that Sword in Battle Royale speedrun is arguably the best ability in the game. Now, we'll get into the why as this video goes on, but for now, just keep that factoid in the back of your noggin that we only begin with Sword, it's really strong, and the fact that it is strong keeps me up crying into my pillow at night. Fun. But the real fun starts in the Beginner League, our first of 5 leagues to conquer in this run. Honestly, there isn't too much to say about it. It's the first league, so it's obviously the easiest of the bunch. That said, to clear the league, you play 3 different battle modes, so let's talk about them. And by them, I only really mean one of them for now. Apple Scramble and Coin Clash are timed games. That whole thing I was talking about earlier that made me not really want to learn this run to begin with. There's something about me crying into a pillow at night, I think, I don't know, when you do it every day, it all starts feeling so normal. Okay, anyway. There's actually a lot to talk about with Apple Scramble, but that's not gonna be relevant until much later in the video. Don't forget now. So, for now, let's talk about what is arguably the most important battle mode in the entire speedrun, the Battle Arena. You and 3 other Kirbys are in a battle arena. That's pretty much it. Now, that may sound simple, and on paper, it is, but this is a 3DS game, so we're not playing on paper, now are we? But in practice, this is a speedrun. We have to do this fast, and to do this fast, we gotta kill those Kirbys. Fast, or I don't know, clobber that there Kirbys. I can say kill in a YouTube video, right? Golly, I'm tired, chat. What we need in order to clear Battle Arena quickly is damage. Destroy all Kirbys and leave them no room for survival. Now, unlike Forgotten Land, random shade tossed, sorry, not sorry. Battle Royale is a 3D Kirby game with full expansive movesets for its abilities, and this includes a charge attack for each that can be pretty devastating. Now, these don't take very long to charge, this is a Kirby game after all, so we can assume that using a charge attack is the way to go. So what we need to do is find an ability that has a charge attack that deals a lot of damage and, ideally, has good range, so we can hit multiple Kirbys at once with it. But where can we find this magical ability that uses pretty princess powers to make all of our speedrun woes turn into speedrun glows? Some say this magical ability actually exists and is in this very game right now as we speak. Curious, I dug through the game's files, hacked into its database, and found that yes, Sword's charge attack, its spin attack from the main series, that is traditionally quite useless, has everything we need to decimate Battle Arena battles. Damage? Not only is it strong, it just barely hits the 2-hit KO benchmark, meaning we only need to hit enemies twice in order to knock them out cold. Range? We can actually hit 2 Kirbys fairly consistently, especially since you can throw Kirbys closer to each other when you knock them down. The consistency? I've got nothing clever in this one. Just watch the footage. This is so easy to pull off. Part of what makes Sword so good is how it's really your only option for the Battle Arena. You start with sword and only sword, so you're never missing out on using it. And like I said, so many of the other game modes aren't ability dependent, they're time dependent. So you can feasibly get away with just using sword for a big bulk of this category. Other abilities are certainly good, but sword is your only mandate for a while, so you better get used to it. And for those wondering, the third battle mode I said nothing about because I'm mean. Coin Clash is at the very least a fun little time waster. Wait, am I using bomb and not sword for this? Didn't I like literally just get finished saying that sword is the best? Why am I using bomb? Well, this is where things are gonna get interesting, so check it out. Sword can be used for the timed battle modes, and it can work great, but in my practice, I found sword a bit lacking for some of these in consistency. The enemy AI, the actual video game AI that fights you, not generative AI garbage on my face, actually gets pretty good later on in, and sword having to, you know, actually commit to what it's doing and get closer to the target, fine for Battle Arena, not so much for something like Coin Clash. Of course, this is just the beginner's league, so sword can clear it very easily. But I really like bomb for a lot of these timed battle modes because you don't really have to commit when you're using it. You stand at a far distance while the CPUs focus on what they think their win condition is, I guess, collecting coins in this case. Meanwhile, I, an intellectual, hurl bombs from a distance and watch as my enemies explode. This is not a call for demonetization, YouTube. Please, like, pretty please. Don't. After the qualifier battle for the Beginners League, which is a nice and simple battle arena romp, we enter the Bronze League, where we not only have access to the 3 modes mentioned above, but also 3 new ones. And let me tell you, all of these modes are insane. Again, not so much in the Bronze Cup itself, we're still pretty early into the run, but all of the battles introduced here go a long way into making this run the insane speed run that it is. Starting with the easiest to explain, we have Attack Riders. Simply end with the most coins to win, similar to Coin Clash, only you get these air ride machine looking beasts to ride on and ram into your enemies with. On its own, there's not much here. I also used to really like bomb for this one. Tossing bombs from a safe distance, YouTube, don't ban me. Saves lives later on, but eventually I found Spear's creatively named Spear Toss option select hitting enemies either on the ground or camping on platforms to be really useful. Irrelevant to the ability choice though, the huge thing about Attack Riders and why it's seen constantly throughout the run is how short it is. It's not Battle Arena short, literally nothing is, but it's only 90 seconds. That's pretty fast when a lot of the other game modes take over 2 minutes. 30 seconds may not sound like much, in reality it isn't, but in speedrun, that's basically multiple lifetimes. Don't think about the length of the full category if 30 seconds is multiple full lifetimes though. But that said, to set the bar high early and get you all hyped, the other 2 battle modes just so happen to be my 2 favorite modes in the speedrun. Starting with the one I like ever so slightly less, we have Crazy Theater, a game mode that, oh boy, it certainly lives up to its name. In Crazy Theater, you're given various mini-tasks that you need to succeed in, and doing so will reward you points. Each of these small tasks, of course, are timed, but unlike a lot of the other modes, you need to make sure you're actually winning. Otherwise, you lose time, and we can't have that. Oh, gee, I sure hope there wasn't a partner friend who doesn't have a single brain cell in that tiny little head of his who can't do basic math to ruin your attempts. Golly gee, wouldn't that be something? Yeah, one of the more frustrating, albeit humorous, aspects of Crazy Theater is that you're paired with Bandanity, who just can't do math. Granted, sometimes he's agreeable and everything is awesome, but then the game will ask, say, what's 2 plus 3? Obviously, it's, well, that doesn't matter, but the challenge isn't simply standing on the number 5. The challenge is staying on there without your opponents knocking you off. It's genuinely really fun. No less so when Bandanity sees the number 4 and decides he's a homeowner now and will not budge. I'm still trying to work out the specifics of this since I'm desperately hoping that it isn't just random. I have some ideas for now, but I'll get back to you on it some other day. Again, something, I'm streaming Battle Royale this whole weekend, come watch, etc. But, okay, say things go perfectly. in one romp of Crazy Theater, but then in the late game when things are difficult and scary, you mess up once. How much time do you lose? Well, each game of Crazy Theater varies, but I looked back on a run I did of Carry One Apple. This one's hilarious. You just need to pick up an apple, except there's only one apple. So you just pick it up, hurl it at Bandanity, and hope he picks it up without dropping it, because he's just so darn silly. Timing it, this wound up taking 17 seconds. 17 times 5 is 85, which is just under a minute and a half, so a perfect game of Crazy Theater would be even shorter than Attack Riders. But the real challenge of Crazy Theater, and why I think it's so good as a skill check and a form of self-expression, things I love in speedruns, comes from not messing up. Yeah, Bandanity can forget how to do math sometimes. Such a cute little guy! He negatively impacts the one Kirby who's trying to help him compared to the massive Kirbys, meaning this Kirby is a minority and Bandanity hates minority! But that's not to say that you just win for free every time. Especially later in the run, Crazy Theater is tough, and losing time is almost expected. Making mistakes in, say, the battle arena is a matter of seconds. I can't see it being any more than 5, maybe 10, but 2 mistakes in Crazy Theater is over half a minute. It's fun, it's tense, and you know what? Even though it's punishing, I like it a lot. That said, and this is more of a me thing, but it's okay because I love Battle Royale, the ability of choice for Crazy Theater can be a bit tricky. Most people will just stick with sword, and it is really good, don't get me wrong, but I just don't like having to get in so close to the enemy in order to deal damage. Early on, yeah, it's fine, but mid to late game, Crazy Theater can get really scary, and I don't want the CPUs scoring points unless they're Bandanity. Who sometimes doesn't, of course, but he's cute, so it's okay, something minorities. Bomb sounds great here, and it is, but it takes a little too long for my liking. Crazy Theater is all about short bursts of action, and yeah, at least for me, Bomb is actually a little inconsistent for the single player. It's also not very good at protecting Bandanity, who, well, you know. So what ability did I wind up favoring here? One that's fast, has good range, and can keep Bandanity safe. Ideally, one that has an option for knocking down the CPUs as well. While it's not as perfect of a fit as Sword, anyone who's watched this channel for 5 seconds knows the answer. I really like Parasol for Crazy Theater once it's unlocked. The disjoints on Parasol in this game are insane, allowing for some very easy offense and defense on all missions, including the very final Crazy Theater in the Platinum League, which, oh boy, we'll get to. It doesn't knock enemies down or keep them in a long stun lock, both of which are things that scare Bandanity away, meaning it's easy and consistent to get 2 points with it. You also don't allow the CPUs to get points with it very easily, something you especially want to avoid on the final round, given it costs you almost half a second if the CPU manages to score. Oh, the horror! Why are there hearts in my eye? Before getting into the final mode, something I actually want to highlight is the ability variety so far, given that this is something I've critiqued this game for a lot in the past. So far, I've highlighted Sword, Bomb, and Parasol. It seems like good variety to me. The neat thing is, even at the highest level, Sword can get the job done for all of these game modes if you're well practiced enough for it. But I choose these other abilities because I find them more consistent, easier to work with for certain modes. I've played a lot of this game over the years, so I know how a lot of these abilities work well enough. And thanks to the touchscreen, you don't even have to waste time scrolling to other abilities to select them. Hey, that's just like me! This is exemplified perfectly with the final new mode of the Bronze League and my favorite mode in the speedrun, Rocket Rumble. You and the other CPUs each have a rocket that can fly high into the sky, but you need fuel in order to lift off. Of course, fuel can be obtained by these green and orange cubes, but be careful not to mistake dynamite for fuel, because that makes you lose upwards of 7 fuel at a time. Trust me, I've played Battle Royale before. They call me the NASA puppy with how much I know about rockets. Anyway, after 60 seconds, yeah, only 60, this one's a quickie, you lift into the skies, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. Now, on paper, this sounds really plain, kind of like Coin Clash and Apple Scramble, except it's a lot shorter. But you would be mistaken. There's a lot that goes into a game of Rocket Rumble, and it all comes down to how long it takes to fly into the sky. To get a bit nerdy pup on you all for a second, I know you love nerdy pup. For every 2 points that you score, you lose 1 second. Similarly, for every 1 point that you score, you lose half a second. This means that you want to score low because obviously you don't want to lose time. Seems simple so far, but you know, you have to actually win the darned thing. The CPUs aren't just gonna stand around and talk about the stock market, right? We have a ways to go until Hal gives us Kirby and the Forgotten Economy, which takes place in a post-apocalyptic America, specifically. So, while the CPUs are storing fuel in their ships, it's your task to make sure they store as little as possible by attacking their ships, either with your ability or the aforementioned dynamite. Thankfully, it's easy to tell how much fuel you have based on how many lights your rocket floor LEDs are lit up. If none of them are lit up, you have no fuel and tying is a loss, so don't lose. Okay, so now it's starting to sound a lot more fun, but here's the kicker. If you really want to try hard, and I am always foaming at the mouth to do that, I'm always saying this, then you need to score only 1 point. Scoring 2 points loses you half a second, so don't do that. Remember, we're min-maxing on being a tryhard here. Playing the game like this is now suddenly a lot harder, but also infinitely more rewarding. I know I'm such a broken record, I'm gonna be recording from a dumpster before long, but in the Bronze League, this isn't particularly difficult to pull off, but the later in the game you get, the harder it is to successfully do this. I'll even say that when I'm trying to play like this, you know, I try hard. I don't think Sword works very well at all. I much prefer being able to sit back and throw projectiles at the rockets and give myself the flexibility needed to adapt to any given situation. Of course, I exclusively use Bomb for Rocket Rumble because of this, and honestly, even in qualifier battles, it gives me really consistent results. Things can go really, really poorly for me, but I can still pull a miracle out of nowhere. You watch the footage I've been using with your eyes for a great example of what I'm talking about. Genuinely, it's really nutty. Of course, the beauty of a Kirby Battle Royale speedrun is that a lot of these game modes are really flexible with ability choice. The bare minimum, 6 of them allow you to pick your preferred ability to adapt to whatever a given game mode calls for. For Rocket Rumble, if you prefer the speed to throwing spears and having better defensive options against the tough CPUs later on with Spear, I'm talking about Spear a lot today, use that. If you like whipping and throwing fuel at enemies to keep them knocked down and unable to move much, use Whip. If your method of winning revolves around keeping fuel as close to you as possible at all times, use Tornado. I really think Bomb's strengths outshine what any other ability can do in Rocket Rumble, giving me a best ability for the mode, but as long as you're not losing time, you can really use any ability that you want. Now then, one final note about Rocket Rumble before we move on, and I'm mentioning this now because it's something that exclusively happens in the Bronze Cup. There are a few challenges across the entire Cake Royale that require you to use a specific ability. In this run, we only do 2 of them, but one of them is in the Bronze Cup, requiring you to use Cutter. You get a lot of points towards reaching the qualifier by doing this, so you really want to have to do this. Thankfully, it's early enough in the game to where it's not very hard, but overall, Cutter here is okay. It gets the job done. I can get my 1 point while making sure the CPUs get 0, so I'm not going to say anything bad about it. It's definitely not great for Rocket Rumble overall, though. The best thing that I could say about it otherwise is that the qualifier battle for the Bronze League also starts with Rocket Rumble. So if you do this one last and for some reason you don't want to use the touchscreen, you technically save time by just picking Cutter immediately and using it here too. It's something, I guess? After another simple qualifier battle, we move on to the Silver League, where the run finally begins picking up a little bit. Before the Silver League is a very lax, enjoyable run, albeit one that can feel a little mindless once you get the hang of it. Trust me, you'll learn to appreciate this when we get to later leagues, but before getting to the real tricky stuff, we have the Silver League, which is kind of a nice in-between in terms of difficulty, I would say. Specific missions start standing out a lot more, things become slightly more challenging, and of course, we have 2 brand spanking new game modes to talk about. One of them, Slam Hockey, really doesn't offer much of anything. It's short, so it's worth playing twice. You literally play it twice in the Silver League and then never again. Basically, there's a giant hockey puck that you can attack or throw at other players, and you try to hit the most opponents before time runs out. Yeah, it's another one of these, but the skill expression is at an all-time low here, at least for speedrunning. You can literally just smack some CPUs, grab the puck, and run away. There is not much to offer here, and it's probably the worst game mode in the speedrun, but at least it's short and you only play it twice. It's a shame, the music and multiplayer for this one are really good, but it is what it is. Now, Robo-Bonkers on the other hand, this one's crazy, and definitely one of the more important ones to get right. I'd actually argue that it's the most important to get right, since it's one of the few game modes that you not only play a lot across the run, but also isn't timed. How quickly you clear is entirely dependent on how good you are at it, meaning things like ability selection and skill checking are actually quite important here. But all this yapping, how does this Robo-Bonkers mode even work? For the simple casual version, you're basically fighting a mob mini-boss. Robo-Bonkers will fire laser beams and attack you in the background as you and 3 other Kirbys, or maybe Bandana D in his untherapied violence, I don't know, fire rockets into a cannon to stun him. Once he's stunned, you all wail on him until his health bar completely depletes. Do this again, and the game is over. On its own, it's straightforward, but this is arguably the hardest mode to consistently get right in the Cake Royale. Notably, you need to rely on the CPUs to carry around some of the rockets. There's simply too many of them that spawn too far apart from each other for you to quickly gather them all in a fast time. Now, this isn't a terrible issue. The CPUs are competent enough, especially in later leagues, but who Robo-Bonkers fires beams and hammers and mean looks at is entirely dependent on RNG, luck. If he attacks you, no sweat, just don't get hit and it's fine. But if a CPU gets hit and they all have rockets and are all bundled together, they really struggle with the electric floor panels that spawn when Bonkers attacks. More often than not, you'll have to waste time running over them to clear up their mess. This can cost actual valuable time, but of course, what's far more annoying is something that costs less time. In the second phase, until you unlock Hammer way down the line, Sword is your best option for dealing damage. Like I said, it's a really good ability, and it's even quite good for the first part of this fight, so you don't really mind. But you do need to charge up Sword Spin Attack in order to get the peak damage, and the CPU sometimes decide that they just don't like you, what a surprise, and they'll target you. There are a mentally healthy amount of ways to get around this, but the bad news is that if they do hit you, it's annoying and honestly, depending on how poorly everything goes, can cost you more time than anything else. Still, sometimes being annoyed is just the worst part. There's also varying difficulty levels to the fight itself. There's also Robo-Bonkers DX and Robo-Bonkers SDX. The latter you never have to fight in any percent, so like, who cares? But the DX fight you fight once or twice, and this fight can be really annoying. Having more health and more aggressive attacks will just kind of do that, but the health in Phase 1 is truly the worst part. You need to fire more missiles at Robo-Bonkers that the CPUs will inevitably squander around. Oh wow! Joyous occasion! Blessed be mine survival, for living to see a divine moment such as thine. Insert segue! And my model, hi everyone. You may be wondering, Claire, this does sound neat and all, but there's really nothing better than Sword. Wouldn't I, the ultimate Sword slanderer, find something better? And I mean, no. I don't really hate Sword all that much, but also, 500 points of damage to Robo-Bonkers with a faster than average charge move? Yeah, that's really, really good. Hammer can outpace it later, but you only have Hammer for 1, maybe 2 Robo-Bonkers battles, whereas Sword gets 4 or 5 before that, and nothing else you have can really compare. You get Tornado after Hammer, and while its perfect charge does 900 damage, holy smokes, it's across multiple hits, unlike Sword and Hammer's charge, which is only 1. Every other charge move is weaker, and none of them are multi-hits that can pull off 500 damage as quickly as Sword can. I told you, Sword in this game? Kinda cray-cray. There's also a Robo-Bonkers challenge that requires you to clear 7,000 points in the Silver League specifically, but it's not really anything. Playing normally will bring you past that point, so something far more interesting to talk about is the Apple Scramble Challenge in this same league, where you begin with a 20-point deficit. You heard it right, 20 points. And since we haven't talked much Apple Scramble yet, that really sounds like a lot. And it isn't nothing, but the CPUs at this point still aren't good enough to prevent you from making this comeback within a 2-minute period. That's a lot of time, so this winds up being a lot more interesting on paper than in execution. You still get the best music in the game playing while you do this though, so in my book, it's no biggie. I should also mention that at the end of this league, you unlock Parasol. It isn't great or anything, aside from the crazy theater thing I mentioned earlier, but it's my favorite ability ever, so I wanted to mention it. I love you, my sweet. And another straightforward qualifier battle brings us to the Gold League, and this is where things begin getting kinda crazy. We've already got a lot to talk about here, but as always, not all beings in Kirby Battle Royale are created equal. Therefore, we begin by talking about a game that has a little bit going on, I suppose, or Express. Casually, I adore this mode, but in a speedrun, it's largely pretty cut and dry. You pick up ore through an express, and try to hold on to it until a train arrives that you can throw the ore into. As is the case with many of the lesser game modes, this one is on a fixed timer, but there actually is a little something going on here. See, for the first 2 segments, you have a point tally that, well, tallies your current score. The numbers going up takes time, so the more you score in the first 2 segments, the more time you lose. The third segment does not do this, so the more you hold off on scoring until that final part, the faster you clear. This doesn't save a lot of time, but you're ready to hear me say this again, it's a speedrun. It adds up for sure. As for what abilities are good for this mode, really any of them, but since you're going to be carrying ore for so much of it to ensure nobody can score, the ability doesn't play a huge part. You can go whip so you can easily grab your opponents to knock them down, go sword to KO them fast and get a head start on grabbing ore, tornado when you eventually unlock it to pull ore towards you, parasol because specifically I love it a lot. You have options, but since 99% of this will involve carrying ore, again, it isn't super important. The final battle mode that we haven't seen in the Cake Royale is Flag Ball, and oh boy do they keep a good one for last. The objective of Flag Ball is to carry this ball around and throw it onto your flag. You're blue, the enemy is red. First to 7 points wins, although once the team reaches 3, both flags become doublers, so it doesn't take quite as much time as you might think. Oh, right, this is a speedrun, that's right. Oh, yeah. Similar to Apple Scramble, this is a forced 2v2 mode, so every time you play Flag Ball, you're paired with Bandana D. This isn't nearly as bad as, say, Crazy Theater. His AI has some quirks for sure. He really loves throwing the flag exclusively when you throw the ball, but unlike Crazy Theater, I find his patterns to be very consistent. He's never getting 2 plus 2 wrong here on a whim of cruel hate crimes. He just plays Flag Ball in the way that he thinks is best, which is not very good, but you can at least work around it and not lose time. That's all I really care about here, although, to be honest, the hate crimes, they really gotta stop, buddy. We care about you. Since this isn't a mode where time is the only factor that affects speed, there is a clear-cut best ability for the mode, but finally, it's not sword. Say hello, or should you say, yay ha! To Whip, the only relevant ability for Flag Ball. It's already unlocked by the time we reach the Gold League, so availability is not an issue at all. And while I'm sure other abilities are fine for this mode, remember how I mentioned a few times that Whip can grab items from a distance? Yup, it sure can do that in Flag Ball too. Look at this! While other abilities require strategy, winning most games of Flag Ball with Whip is literally as simple as pressing the yay-ha button and throwing your ball. There's a mission in the Gold League that sounds really hard, a bounce back from 0 to 3, which starts you at a 3-point deficit. Now, we're in the Gold League too, so the difficulty is starting to pick up a bit. I'd imagine using other abilities may cause some struggle, but Whip trivializes this and makes it absurdly fast. The CPUs just don't know what to do here. They're in awe of Whip's yay-ha-ness. It's crazy. On that note, the Gold League is where we start getting to specific missions that can actually cause some difficulty. For example, Rocket Rumble has Beware the Super Time Bomb, which involves a Super Time Bomb. That sounds super lame, actually. I'm going back to Dynamite. That name rules. It involves a super dynamite that, upon explosion, does even more damage to both you and your rocket when it explodes. Now, this isn't super hard. Realistically, the explosion being stronger, causing you to die easier, is your only worry, but I've lost a run to that once, and I had some pretty bad gamer rage after. Some of my community can vouch that wasn't very pretty. Okay, I know this is really weird to mention this late in the video. I promise I'll make this quick. But every Monday, I join a voice call on my Discord server with my YouTube Mempups members, and I speedrun Kirby while hanging out on call. These are super chill nights, and if you want to join, you can become a YouTube member, Mempup too. The lowest tier that gives you VC access right now is only $1. You can support me for more than that if you want, but if you can't afford that $1, I completely understand. I know it might sound sarcastic, but I genuinely do. Money is tough. Head pats are free. I get it. Anyway, back to Rocket Rumble. Another Rocket Rumble challenge that actually gave me a hard time is get to 20. It's self-explanatory, you just get to 20 points and win. But as you know, this is a speedrun, so the farther above 20 we go, the more time we lose. Actually getting 20 on the dot is really difficult, and while going 1 or 2 over isn't going to be the end of the world, we're in the Gold League now. CPUs genuinely will attack your rocket sometimes, and yeah, it can be tough keeping count of how much fuel you put in your rocket and how much is being knocked out. See, this is a classic example of why I love speedrunning Rocket Rumble so much. Actually clearing this mission is not hard. In one of my first runs, I got really scared and overshot this mission and ended up with 38 points. Easy to win, but that being 18 points over 20, I lost 9 seconds to that. Funny Toho Chirno number, haha yes, but still, it's a lot of time for a speedrun. But the closer you get to 20, the higher odds are that you miscounted, or a CPU hit your rocket when you weren't looking, or something. How close to the sun are you willing to fly to win this fast? I've yet to do this one perfectly. 21 is the lowest that I have ever gotten, which, yeah, that's absurdly good, but not perfect. Don't stroke my ego too much. Even I don't like it. That all being said, the Gold League is home to one of the most innocent-looking missions in the game that may actually be the hardest part of the speedrun. Say hello to Fighter versus Fighter, a battle arena challenge where you, as Fighter, have to beat another Kirby, which is Fighter. Okay, the other Kirby being Fighter, that's not what makes this super difficult. Fighter has lots of fast options that can ruin your mojo, but as long as you hit them with your strong attacks, like with Sword, this won't be an issue. Right? Unfortunately, that's why this is up there as one of, if not the, hardest parts of the whole run. You get 50 LP for clearing something potentially very fast. For context, most not battle arena missions in this league grant you 25 to 45 LP. Like I said, Battle Arena is by far the fastest mode in the game, so this isn't something that we can just route out of the speedrun. And Fighter's options for dealing with another fighter are terrible. They're just straight up useless. Realistically, you only have 2 moves. Fighter's Y attacks, kick, spin kick, and, you'll never guess this one, final spin kick, and its charge attack, Giga Force Blast. Unlike your Return to Dreamlands, you can't input a Hadouken motion to get this move out quickly, so you have to charge it. And since Battle Arena is a 3D space, the CPU has all the time, and jumps, in the world to get around this. So why use it instead of Kick? Aside from Kick being an awful streaming service, yeah, I said it! The damage from Gigaforce Blast is, again, just too good to look past. It takes 8 or 9 of Kirby's kick moves to knock out the other fighter, whereas it only takes 3 Gigaforce Blasts to win the day. And it's not like the kick moves are the most reliable either. If you can connect one, like, yeah, they work, but the CPU fighter is constantly moving, running around, being the most annoying Kirby that they can be. So, after struggling, muddling, and puppying through this challenge for several runs, I sat down on stream and said, alright, let's make this consistent. What can we do to help make this easier? And the best thing I got after over a half hour of doing the same I don't know, depending on how far I got, 5 to 40-second challenge on repeat, was that 2 Gigaforce Blasts and 2 series of kicks is enough to KO the other Kirby. You start very close next to fighters, so Gigaforce Blast as an opener is possible, I suppose, but very sus. Thank you for the brain rot. However, opening with kicks is very easy and works consistently enough, so doing 3 of them as an opener works great. Then we get to the struggle. We have to try and land a Gigaforce Blast at this point because if we just go back to kicks, we may as well just be spamming that move to victory, which is very slow. If we try the Gigaforce Blast too close, we get hit by a dive kick, but if we're too far, fighter just runs away. Typical. But if we're a specific distance, the CPU will try kicks of their own or simply run very close to us to try and attack. If we time our charge just right, we can hit them, even if they try and run away. From here, I tend to prefer doing some more kicks to position the final blow, but maybe Gigaforce Blast could be better. I don't know, the first Giga I could land almost consistently, but the second, it like never works. Yeah, dozens of practice attempts and I still couldn't figure something out that's fully consistent. This mission stinks. Thankfully, you do at least have kicks as a backup, so you're good there. On paper, it's possible to clear this mission consistently in the 30-second ballpark, maybe even faster, but all I've got to say to that is, good luck, pal, you will need it. So, normally, this is where I'd say one more simple qualifier battle later, and we're into the next leg. But no, the gold qualifier battle can actually be pretty tough. Enter Meta Knight and Axe Knight, who never says anything, never shows up outside of this qualifier, and yet was still given a silly-sounding voice, who make the gold qualifier actually very difficult. Well, parts of it anyway, but we'll get there later. A big part of the challenge is that if you lose one single round here, it's game over, and you have to start all over from the beginning. A death toll in a speedrun especially. First up is a game of flag ball, and while whip is still your ability of choice here for very obvious reasons, Meta Knight won't make it easy. Axe Knight mostly will, he hangs back and plays mediocre defense at best, but Meta Knight is here for the ball and is more than even that, here for your soul. He is very aggressive and will often use attacks that knock the ball right out of your hands. Bandana D is doing something, so it's mostly up to you to get good spacing and dodge Meta Knight's aggression. He's got some demons to work out with himself, I guess, but there are things you can do to help your odds. First of all, I like to stay above him, not directly above him, just being on a higher plane of existence is fine. It's over, Meta Knight, I have the high ground! Oftentimes, this will cause Meta Knight to jump at you so he can knock the ball away. At this point, you've either got a clear sight of the enemy flag, or you can just throw the ball and hit him with it, knocking him down, and giving you some time to push for the flag. Alternatively, just forget Meta Knight and make a mad dash for Axe Knight. He'll get so nervous that he either won't do anything, or just throw the flag that he's already likely picked up away. It's fairly consistent, so I wouldn't label this one as inherently annoying as fighter plus fighter, but Meta Knight is a demon when it comes to his strategy for this mode. Any strategy can fall apart if you're unprepared for a Meta Knight's offense. Rocket Rumble is next, and while the game plan for this one is very simple, we keep the CPUs at 0, you and Bandana D at 1, in practice, is this extremely difficult to pull off? Yes. First of all, of course, Meta Knight's aggression is something you have to look out for. I've never seen a CPU wait so long to enter their rocket purely on a foundation of I hate you specifically, but Meta Knight would do it, he just is that guy. Also, this is the first 2v2 Rocket Rumble we've discussed, so I haven't been able to mention how Bandana D is actually pretty good at throwing fuel into your rocket. This is bad, since it results in you just having way too many points. Individually, dealing with Meta Knight or dealing with Bandana D would be pretty simple and not that bad, but put the two together and you get quite the challenge. If nothing else, I find this one pretty simple to actually win for the most part, but winning it well is actually really tough. Easier than the flag ball challenge, but honestly, not by much. Next is an Ore Express challenge, and this one is actually pretty easy. The first segment, you just need to carry as much ore as you can and hope for the best. Your Bandanity will inevitably score you some points, and Mennonite is still really aggressive, so he'll be doing that too. But by round 2, you'll be carrying so much ore that the game actually can't load anymore. Yeah, funny enough, all 3 of the CPUs, hi Axnite, I remember you, have a bad tendency to run in front of the train. Several times even, giving you a lot of time to pick up ore. I knew Mennonite had some demons to battle, but this is thanks. Finally, we get to the end of the qualifier battle for gold, that being a battle arena battle. Sword as you go to here for obvious reasons, no fighter nonsense for us, but actually landing Sword's charge attack here, not easy. Again, Mennonite aggression is no joke, but neither is Axnite's defense. Axnite is a model swap of Cutter, so having a projectile to hit you from far away can really mess up your charges. They go down eventually, winning you the Gold League, but oh man, can this inconsistency cost you a lot of time. But hey, we did it! The Gold League is conquered, and now all we have left to do is the Platinum League. But with all of the game modes already introduced, the Platinum League should be a nice breezy romp, leaving the run off at a comfortable spot, right? Right? Well, before we get into the specifics of the Platinum League, we need to talk about boost orbs. Basically, these are little power-ups that you can activate once per battle. And what specific perks they give you, that varies, boosting your defense, offense, healing, speed, charge time, charge size. There's a lot that these little orbs can provide. Unfortunately, we don't really use them all too much throughout the run, since, you guessed it, selecting them on the menu takes time. If nothing else, you can see on screen now, the range boost is a godsend for the battle arena, making it a lot easier. Speaking of the battle arena, utilizing the boost orb that gives you range is the only reliable way to clear one of the hardest challenges the Platinum League has to offer, low health and tough battle. Odd grammar aside, this is a 2v2 battle with Bandanity against opposing Cutter and Beetle. You all have about 20% of your health and you gotta survive. Cutter and Beetle are awful opponents to have for this, since one has a projectile that can make it hard for you to keep a charge, while Beetle has a charge attack that is really fast and chases you down, making evading it while keeping up your offense really hard, virtually impossible. Thankfully, as noted, we have boost orbs, so using the range boost in tandem with Sword's ever-reliable charged spin attack makes this a rather simple challenge, albeit still a scary one that can go wrong. In my PB that initially scored me 2nd place on the leaderboards, I actually lost this challenge once and had to restart. One of the few major mistakes I made in that whole run, if you can believe it. Needless to say, even a simpler challenge like this can be brutal in the Platinum League. Yeah, this isn't going to be another simple romp like previous leagues. The Plat is littered to the brim with difficult challenges that we need to complete for optimal routing. For example, does the thought of playing attack riders and staying on your rider, boy does Kirby air riders make that sentence awkward, for at least 30 seconds while still winning the battle sound scary? Because it is. In the world record held by Sokono, he actually opts to use the speed up boost orb to allow for better defensive options while riding the rider. Air rider, stop! I save a bit of time by opting to just use Spear instead. I'm telling you, it's dummy good here, but regardless, it's still a scary challenge. Speaking of 30 seconds, how does nabbing 15 apples in a 30-second game of Apple Scramble sound? This one is actually largely consistent, since the idea is that you use the speed boost orb that the game gives you right before unlocking to win the day. But actually nabbing the 15 you need in time can still be difficult, especially with CPUs constantly trying to take your apples away. An apple a day does not, in fact, keep the speedrunner away though. This doesn't really give me much trouble. For some reason, I always score 16 on this one. I've got no idea why it's that specific number, but if you're unprepared for it, this one can be a stone wall in terms of making progress. One of the final, and certainly one of the scariest, challenges this run has to offer is a battle against Robobonkers, where you're not allowed to get hit by the big bad bot. Fittingly, it's named Avoid a Robobonkers Hit, but the title does help you a bit here. You can still get hit by anything else, literally, just not Robobonkers. Another thing to tip the scales in your favor, Fire Emblem Awakening reference? Yeah! is that you finally have Hammer for a Robo-Bonkers fight, and golly, is it strong. Get some boost orbs to help your cause, and the speed part of this winds up being remarkably easy. Defensively, yeah, this one's terrifying, but not the lame parts and just the parts that look cool. Easy breezy, baby. Enough of the Platinum League, though. Let's go back to the Gold League for a second. Remember when you had to play a game of Rocket Rumble and score 20 points? Well, enough about the Gold League. Let's come back to the Platinum League and how you not only have to get 25 in a challenge called you get to 25, but now this is a team battle, meaning Bandana D is here to make keeping your score as close to 25 as possible that much harder. Personally, I find winning this one not to be that bad, but I've been told this is a high point in terms of tension and potential time loss. Plus, like earlier, just because winning is easy does not mean winning, well, is easy too. No, this one is brutal for the reasons you'd expect. For every 2 points over the total we go, we lose a full second. If you need to get to 25, a fairly high bar given we aim for a whopping 1 point for the most part, how is Bandana D constantly throwing fuel into the rockets while you have a million other things that you have to pay attention to going to help? You can't really grief in this challenge by hoarding fuel either, because for some reason the fuel just kinda melts away if you hold it for too long, like question mark? I never get close to this one. My average hovers around the 30 to 35 ballpark, which if you can do basic counting is really bad. Yeah, I can count. Don't look a puppy like that. Speaking of griefing though, I think it's finally, time we go into a bit of detail with Apple Scramble. And what better time to do so than the Press 'em to Zero mission, where if the CPU score a single point, you lose. See, the reason why it took me this long to comment on Apple Scramble is because, even though there's a lot to talk about, it ultimately doesn't mean all that much for a video like this, because it will always take 2 minutes no matter what. Well, I guess it takes longer, unskippable cutscenes will do that, but the game tells you 2 minutes, and I like this game a lot, so I've got its back. But for a challenge where you can't let your opponents even score once, yeah, sounds like there's some kind of challenge to it. And normally you'd be right, but upon doing a lot of practice for this category, I found something really funny. The golden apples notwithstanding, the game can't load more than 20 apples on screen at once. If there are 20 apples in play, the game just won't load anymore. This makes sense if you think back to the tutorial in the prologue, yes, that far back. You could only score 10 points max at a time, since apples would stop spawning after that. There's 2 trees here, so that's 10 apples per tree. The math works. I bring up griefing by holding apples and not throwing them, since if no apples are spawning, you don't have to worry about the CPUs getting any points. You can simply score a few points, something that Bandana D actually can and will help you with, and then just keep grabbing apples and running away. You can either play crazy defense and not let the CPUs catch up, or you can bonk them with apples and knock them down if they dare get too close. Bandana D, for some reason, is also very aggressive towards the wispy trees, meaning he will help at least in terms of dealing damage to the CPUs if they get close to wispy. I don't know, I guess Bandana D also hates nature. What else are we learning about this guy today, right? Now, this isn't the only viable option, just the one that I found the most consistency and success with. Bomb is, of course, a great ability here, since the fully charged bomb hits both trees and will easily knock the Kirby's away. Sword does the same thing while trading safety for high damage, so it also works as a more aggressive option. Ice is great for this one, since its charge attack is an ice wall that deals absurd damage and puts up a defensive wall for a short time, working great with boost orbs or on its own. These all have added risks compared to just griefing, hence why I opt to be a jerk, what a shocker. But this is a really fun final challenge for Apple Scramble, a mode that I already really like with some of the best music in the entire game. Seriously, I love the Apple Juice song, it's so cute! But if we're talking about the biggest challenge of the Platinum League, I'd like to give it to Fail Once, You're Out, the crazy theater challenge of my nightmares. Basically, you play 5 rounds of crazy theater. No Bandana D to ruin your day here, thank goodness. But if you fail any of these even once, you have to start the whole thing over. Right off the bat, Crazy Theater is already a highly volatile game mode, with various different events being possible draws for a full game. Not losing these is not only difficult to pull off, but also difficult to predict too. There's also the fact that this is a Platinum League battle. The CPUs, they're not messing around. Nothing, barring some insane aggression, is enough to get them in a position to lose. And in case you don't remember, if you tie with a CPU, you don't actually win. You lose. Not very fair, but I don't know, what can you do? It's the game we play. Other than cry. A lot. Anyway, the CPUs being difficult means that if you play with too much aggression, they can spot a hole in your offense and just kind of go after you, knocking you out, thus losing you the mission. So obviously this is really hard, but is it the hardest in the entire game? Even harder than, say, Fighter v Fighter? I am gonna say no. If only because of a little cheat that you can pull off, that being Whip. It sounds like Flagball, huh? If you're trying to use a different ability, why, yes, this is harder than Fighter v Fighter. This is an inconsistent nightmare of a mess that you're just forced to clean up after. But Whip's long-distance grabbing tends to get the job done at getting rid of at least 1 or 2 CPUs and giving you the breathing room needed to survive and, of course, win. But, of course, we are not finished because we have one final qualifier to go, that being the Platinum qualifier against Day-to-Day himself. And a Waddle Dee. So, this is the hardest part of the entire game, and in my opinion, it's not particularly close. It's hard to win well, and there are 4 challenges that you have to win in a row without failing once. Thankfully, the last one you have to do is Apple Scramble, which by far is the easiest. They can score points without ending your run, so this is defo easier than Press 'em to 0. Now, I like using Ice here just because I like Ice Kirby a lot. Starting off the run, though, might be the hardest of the bunch. A round of Crazy Theater. Sure, Day-to-Day and the Waddle Dee have the most competent AI the game has to offer thus far, but we have Whip now. We went without losing even once, like the Apple Scramble example from before. What's so hard about this? Oh, God, Bandana D is here as well. There's no God, just abandon all hope, everybody. As usual, Bandana D cooperating is necessary to win here, but he already struggled enough with some of the easier CPUs. Now he's supposed to duke it out with the hardest part of the game, and every mistake that he makes is an opportunity for the CPU to do better, get points, and lose you the qualifier? Obviously, this is really tough, and in my PB, I picked Sword, and barely won. But in practice, I promise you, I found Parasol to actually be really good here, and is definitely my preferred choice for this particular battle. Remember when I mentioned Parasol and its highly aggressive disjoints a while back? You can go back and rewatch everything up to this point if you want. I do need that watch time after all, so I can wait. Anyway, this is really the only part of the game where I find these strengths better than, say, Sword's damage or Whip's utility. The CPUs just can't get close if you're Parasol, and you can prevent them from doing so many of the tasks needed in Crazy Theater while not being in much of any danger yourself. It's really good and absolutely clears any attempts that I've tried with Sword or Whip or whatever. The game of Flagball that you play right after, though, is much more straightforward. Whip obviously is used because it's by far the best ability for this mode. That said, I think Flagball might actually be harder than Crazy Theater here. Day-to-Day is the only opponent in Flagball good enough to have workarounds for your usual Whip strats. He actually has counterplay ready to go and will not stay in range of your Whip grabs, meaning you have to play a much more defensive game and aim to grab him or the ball or whatever when he leaves himself open. Obviously, having to think is a lot harder than just pressing a couple of buttons and going, LMAO! But then you get the usual struggles of Flagball. Bandana D being weird, the CPUs being aggressive themselves, and things getting so out of hand and chaotic that you can't even keep track of where the ball is. This is a toughie, right after something that's arguably even harder, only arguably, so I wouldn't let up at this point if I were you. Thankfully, I at least find the game of Coin Clash that comes right after rather simple. I pick bomb, I throw bombs, I win! Yay! That said, unlike every other game of Coin Clash, it does take a bit of time before I can feel comfortable having won this one. And you'll never guess why. The CPUs play much smarter than anything that's come before, and Bandanity in particular has a nasty habit of being taken over by the ghost, costing you coins. Still, I stick to my strategy, and I've never lost, but I've seen some heartbreaking losses at Coin Clash specifically, just like I have with the game of Flag Ball and Crazy Theater in this very same qualifier. Not Apple Scramble, though. That one's kind of brain dead. You'll love to see it. So what comes after the hardest part of the speedrun? Why, the second hardest part of the speedrun, of course. Day-to-Day, unhappy with his loss, challenges Kirby to a 1 vs 3 battle where you alone have to fight him and 2 other Waddle Dees. Not Bandanity, so they can solve basic math equations, but you have some tools up your sleeve. Notably, Sword has cheesed every single battle arena up until now, so it makes perfect sense that it's still great here. But if you could see the footage, we're clearly using Hammer. Why? Well, while it is slower than just using Sword, what happens after the 1v3 is the final boss. Yeah, you're not allowed to swap abilities beforehand, and even if you were, obviously swapping would take some time. So we use Hammer and bring it to the one thing about this game that everybody knows, Day-to Destroyer Z. The fact that this fight wasn't named the Day-to Destroyer Deluxe in North America at least pains me to this day, but whatever. So how does the fight work? Well, Day-to will create other Kirbys to attack you while he tries to attack you himself in his giant machine. This is scary. Not really, but thanks to Bandanity's efforts, you're given a cannon to fire other Kirbys at Day-to with, similar to Robobonkers. The fight goes through a few different phases, but Hammer is particularly strong here, since its default Hammer Bonk attack guarantees a hard knockdown on the other Kirbys. So you can very quickly bop them, throw them into the cannon, then, when you've hit Day-to enough times, you can begin charging Hammer Flip. A fully charged Hammer Flip depletes an entire section of his health bar most of the time, so on both fronts, Hammer winds up being significantly faster than Sword. Look, everybody, look! It took until the end of the run, well beyond the 2-hour mark, but Sword is finally looking bad again! Oh, I have missed this feeling so much. With the timer ending on the final hit of the Day-to Destroyer Z, Kirby Battle Royale's Any Percent Speedrun and the Cake Royale come to an end. Like I said 7 years ago when this video started, I used to think nothing of this category, but since trying it out for myself, I've become addicted. It's a really fun run that starts very relaxing, quickly escalating into an exciting run full of skill expression and clutch time saves. If you have a 3DS and a copy of this game, I'd really recommend trying it out. Battle Royale is a really fun game. Find some friends to play it with especially, and you'll have the time of your life. But on my end, that's all I've got for today. I'd like to quickly thank my wonderful and funderful puptrons who support me and allow me to continue making videos like these. Freakish Uproar, Heavy Points, Galaxy Fan 14, and Lizzie Never Busy. I love you all! And until I see you all again, I am Claire, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, consider watching this one where I entered the biggest Kirby speedrunning event of the year and ran Kirby Superstar Ultra. It's the best game ever! Yeah!